Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined by the one and only Eric Henry. We are recapping Texas's 37-10 victory over Rice that had a lot of Texas Longhorn fans. I feel like I need to get taller on my screen because, Eric, your head is like getting cut off by the top of your screen.
Yeah, we're making adjustments here on the fly.
We're recapping a game that I think most Texas fans after the first half were feeling like, we got Alabama next week. And after the first quarter, Texas had 6 carries for 6 yards. They didn't even try to establish the run early in this game, Eric. But after a 16-3 halftime in which Steve Sarkisian said, hey, we just need to settle down, they got into a groove finally offensively and scored 3 touchdowns in the third quarter. Now, the defense was outstanding the entire game, Eric. Initial impressions, obviously, with an eye toward Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 3 things, Chip. 1, the resiliency of the team was nice to see, only because in my mind, it's been something that has been emphasized since fall camp, right? That and specificity with quarterback Quinn Ewers, that maybe last year when things got down a little bit, he wouldn't have the wherewithal to bounce back. And one bad play would turn into a bad drive, and one bad drive would turn into a bad quarter, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, you are happy to see them show some resiliency and bounce back. Second takeaway, the defensive line, safety Jaron Thompson. What did he say, Chip? Mean, nasty, and violent. Well, granted, it was only against the vaunted Rice Owls, and now I'm using the word vaunted in sarcasm because the intellectual brutality offense was plain brutal for the entirety of the day. But we can feel confident that was the Texas defensive unit, specifically the front 7, that forced that. But the third thing, Chip, I wrote about it in the fall, and I cannot get off of it until I see proof otherwise. Texas's inability to produce in short yardage situations. Chip, the only reason why I'm harping on this so much, you have seen a lot of football, a lot of college football in your lifetime, sir. There are going to be times when it is 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. Steve Sarkisian said he wants to be an aggressive team, 4th and 2 and 4th and 1, in which you go for it. And if you get stopped, that will be a momentum shift to where you're not playing Rice at home and they can't capitalize, but you'll be playing Texas Tech at home and they may be able to capitalize. Or you're going to Alabama and we know that they'll be able to capitalize. You have to, if you're going to take those chances and specificity on 4th down, but even in the 3rd down short yardage game, you want to see the offensive line establish itself, assert itself, impose themselves on an opposing defensive line, and just didn't see that. So, we can get into some of the things we heard post-game. Jake Majors took some accountability for some of those things, but those are my 3 takeaways. So I'll give you 2 positives and 1 that I just feel needs to get cleaned up. If not before next week, definitely before Big 12 play.
Well, I said last week when we talked about this game that I wanted to see Texas impose its will in the running game and stop the run. The defense certainly stopped the run. They held Rice. I wanted a performance similar to what UTSA did against Rice last year, where Rice ran it 32 times for 5 yards. Not bad. They ran it 25 times for 27 yards, 1.1 yards per carry. The Texas defense did its job. The longest run of the game was 6 yards. So no explosive plays given up in the running game by the Texas defense. The Texas offense, as you just mentioned, Eric, they did go for it on their first drive. They went for it on 4th and 2 from their own 33. And the thing that bothered me most about that whole first drive was there was not a run attempt. Quinn Ewers hit Jordan Whittington for 7 yards. Then he hit Xavier Worthy for 0 yards. Then he dropped back to pass Ewers, I'm talking about, and ended up scrambling and tripped on the turf monster. He had a path to the first down, but he tripped and fell after a 1-yard gain. So it's 4th and 2. And they attempt a pass to Jatavian Sanders, and it's incomplete. And they give the ball to Rice at the 33, and that ends up being they kick a field goal. It's the only points that Rice scores until a touchdown late in the game. So, Steve Sarkisian, I thought this would have been a good time to establish the run, get some confidence, get your offensive line confident, running the football. I thought we would see Texas run it like from the beginning, and they didn't. As I said, 6 carries for 6 yards after the first quarter when Texas led 7-3. Then they added 3 field goals in the second quarter. My man Jonathan Brooks had a great 33-yard or 37-yard catch and run touchdown on a screen pass, but he dropped a ball on 3rd and 8 from the Rice 9, and he might have gotten in, but he dropped it, so they settled for a 27-yard field goal. So the offense just wasn't imposing its will on anything. Quinn Ewers missed a deep ball to Xavier Worthy, underthrew another deep ball to Worthy, 2 more to Worthy, missed on deep balls, and then missed on underthrew AD Mitchell late in the game. And, it just, you're going to look at the numbers. You're going to say Quinn Ewers was 19 of 30. He had, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, 63% completion rate. But it was very uneven until that third quarter. And then, like we said, they got into a rhythm. They finally started to run the football. I'm looking at the cumulative stats here. And let's see, in the third quarter, they ran it 12 times for 65 yards, 5.4 a carry. You'll take that. They completed 5 of 7 passes with 2 touchdowns, 100 yards. You'll take that. And on third down, they were 2 of 3. It was easily their best quarter. And in the past, the third quarter has been a bit of a problem for Texas. So I guess if we're going to look at the bright side, Eric, they did make some adjustments coming out of halftime, and the offense got into rhythm and then stretched the lead out.
Yeah, Chip, I'm going to try within this, kind of retort to look at some of the bright spots, right? Jeff Banks' special teams did look like it performed, fairly well for the most part. Defensively, as we've talked about, they performed well. The defense,
special teams. Let's give some love because Bert Auburn hits the 27-yarder, but then he hits a 46 and 49-yarder.
Right.
Those were not easy kicks. One was from the left hash. You had Trey Wisner with a big hit kickoff.
Good coverage, yeah.
Kickoff return. Xavier Worthy was this close to breaking a punt return for a touchdown. And Ryan Sanborn averaged 44.5 yards on 2 punts. So sorry, I just wanted to I wanted to back up your contention that special teams, give them a solid grade.
Absolutely, because those things are going to play a factor when you get into conference play, right? And like I was just saying, I appreciate you making that point, Chip. Defensively, that stuff was real, right? Jalen Ford, one-handed pick, very nice. Very nice to see some turnovers forced, right? Especially something that was a bit of an Achilles heel last year for the defense. But I want to make this point, and I'm going to give it to you in the form of a question. You let me know what you think of this. What really sticks with me as you were talking about some of the offensive struggles, and this kind of crystallized in my mind, you talk about wanting to see the offense impose itself, right? Impose their will on the Rice defense. Chip, did it feel to you like it got to a point in the first half, not so much in the second half, But in the first half, it got to a point where Texas almost had to say, okay, we can't impose our will on them. We need to rely on our playmakers. X, go save us, and that's not what you want against Rice. And so I'm posing that to you in the form of a question, because that's kind of what I felt a little bit or mainly in the first half and a little bit in the opening that third quarter. You see the touchdown to JT Sanders, right, where it's a catch and run. It almost got to a point where it's like, okay, what we wanted to do isn't working. Let's just get our best athletes out there and out-athlete them and then kind of run away with this a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the first drive of the third quarter, you had the 11-yard pass to Xavier Worthy on first down. You had Jonathan Brooks run it for 2 yards. Then Quinn, completed the pass to it was incomplete actually to Jatavian Sanders. And then Quinn ran for 16 yards on 3rd and 8 to extend that drive. It was his best run of the game. And then Jonathan Brooks ran for 2 yards. And then Quinn hits Xavier Worthy for 19. Jaden Blue runs for 3 yards. And then Quinn hits A.D. Mitchell in one-on-one with a 5'8" corner. Thank goodness they saw that matchup because it was to the wide side of the field. A.D. Mitchell, pretty routine, made an outside move, then cut back to the inside. Quinn put it right on him, touchdown. And then the defense rises up, and they get the turnover, and because they stopped him on 4th down, and boom, then the catch and run touchdown to Jatavian Sanders. And now they're up 30-3, and it's kind of over and out. So, and that's, then we saw Jaden Blue come in, and I thought Jaden Blue, Eric, he might have been the best at making something out of nothing. I mean, the blocking really wasn't there all game. I mean, Jaden Blue was having to, dash and dart and spin and step, get guys to miss. And he ended up with 10 carries for 55 yards. CJ Baxter, the freshman who started at running back, ended up with decent numbers. He had, CJ had 5 carries for 38 yards, but 32 of those yards came on the running play where he ended up getting hurt and leaving the game. So he ends up with 7.6 a carry, but as we said, five carries for 38 yards, 32 of them. So that means that 4 carries were for 6 yards. That's not going to get it done. And Jonathan Brooks had 12 carries for 52 yards, 4.3 a carry. His longest run was 18 yards. That's my biggest concern. Like, that is absolutely my biggest concern going into next week, is the offense's ability to establish the run, because the good news is they stayed patient with it. They kept running it, and they wore Rice down. Alabama and their defense, and let's check in on Alabama right now because they're playing Middle Tennessee. They're up 56-7 as we're recording this. There's 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Alabama has run it 38 times for 203 yards, 5.3 a carry, and 5 touchdowns. Now, Jalen Milroe is doing work on the ground. He has 7 carries for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. That dude is KJ Jefferson from Arkansas. You just don't want it to be. I mean, even his passing numbers are like KJ Jefferson. KJ was 14 of 19 2 years ago in the blowout of Texas. Jalen Milroe's 13 of 18, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing. It's Middle Tennessee, I get it, but Alabama's doing what they're supposed to do, and Texas ends up with a 37-10 win. But there's some issues. And look, Texas's defense may be good enough that if Texas gets off to the same kind of start that they did against Rice next week against Alabama, Texas's defense is good enough to keep them in it. They might be able to limit Alabama to some field goals, but the offense is going to have to do more. They're not going to be able to settle for those field goals like they did in the first half, because it's probably going to be a lower scoring game. Alabama's going to limit them. And what did you think of Quinn Ewers, Eric?
Incomplete. If I had to give Quinn a grade, it would be an I. Here's the thing. When you look at Quinn's numbers as far as the stat sheet, right, and you may have stat broadcast pull up, I don't. I know that, I left a DKR. The numbers, if you didn't watch the game, would look pretty solid, right?
Yeah, 19 of 30, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran it 8 times for 12 yards and 1 touchdown.
So just a shade, 19 of 30 should have been right at 60%. Right. Okay. So the numbers look okay. You still want the completion percentage certainly a bit higher, especially against Rice. But we can't ignore the elephant in the room, right? The deep ball was not there. And when I mean it wasn't there, I mean it wasn't completed, because it was there. Chip, we saw Quinn hang a couple balls up. And I don't know if that's just first game jitters and you don't want to overthrow somebody. But there were some times, a pair of deep balls, where it felt like Xavier Worthy had beaten his man, or an A.D. Mitchell had beaten his man, and they were waiting on that ball to come down on them. So that's why I say I can only give Quinn an incomplete grade. It was nice to see him use his legs a little bit and pick up first downs when, maybe there wasn't something downfield. But again, that's against a Rice defense that, quite frankly, wasn't that good last year. I mean, they returned 8 starters, but it's Rice. What do you want me to say in terms of that, in that regard? So that's the best way I can describe Quinn's game, is incomplete. Again, I appreciate the resiliency. I appreciate the fact that things didn't compound and turn into a bad drive or a bad quarter. But with that being said, for Texas to have the type of year that has been projected, we know that that deep ball is going to have to come into play. We heard Steve Sarkisian talk about it. Now I'm going to pass back to on this, Chip. He talked about wanting to attack the defense at all 3 levels, right? The short game, the intermediate game, and at the 3rd level going long. Well, when defenses are not threatened by anything that's going over their head, that allows them to play a certain way, right? And this is what I said I was going to pass it back to you on. Yes, you talked about it. Texas defense did show up. That was a legit performance. I 1,000% believe that. Did it feel in any way, is it too strong of me to say that it felt like Steve Sarkisian was almost playing damage control, in the sense of leading his press conference by saying, well, we're going to win in a variety of ways? Yes, that is true, right? This defensive performance, there is nothing wrong if Texas wins a 17-10 ball game in Alabama, or a 17-13 game. I don't want to use Baylor as an example, because we saw what they had against Texas State, but insert Big 12 opponent, right? There's nothing wrong with that. However, it's not an excuse for the offensive inefficiency. And I'm not saying Sark was giving excuses, but it felt to me like that was a little bit of saying, hey, okay, maybe the offense isn't quite where we want it to be, but the defense was there, so that's a way we can win a ball game.
Yeah, and they collected 3 turnovers from Rice. They get the Jalen Ford interception, which was a beauty. Austin Jordan gets the interception, but really it was Tavondre Sweat who forced that terrible throw by JT Daniels. And then they get the gift fumble. No one caused it. It just came out of Quentin Jackson's hands, and Jett Bush jumps on it. And that was the drive that Malik Murphy came in and delivered a strike to Isaiah Nair, 14-yard bullet on 3rd and 9 to get to the Rice 19. And then it's just a comedy of errors. Patrick Bayouth gets called for offensive pass interference on a 12-yard completion to Jonte Cook. That gets wiped out. Then on the next play, Hayden Connor gets flagged for 15-yard personal foul face mask, and it's 1st and 40. And they end up having to settle for a 56-yard field goal attempt after having first down at the Rice 19. And that was the only miss by Bert Auburn. The 56-yard field goal came up a little bit short. So of the three, they get the 3 turnovers, but they only get 3 points out of the 3 turnovers. So it wasn't, it just wasn't sharp. It just was not a sharp performance offensively. And, we're getting, people saying on the message board, God, Malik Murphy looked better than Quinn Ewers. He only attempted 5 passes. He completed 3 of them. But, Murphy stands tall in the pocket. He throws off his front foot. Look, I'm higher than most on Malik Murphy. And people are asking me, do we know for sure if Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback than Malik Murphy? No, we don't know for sure. We haven't seen Malik Murphy get the chance to run the offense for an entire game. But I don't know that we're ever going to get to see that this year unless Quinn Ewers falls completely flat on his face or has to come out of a game. And so we didn't, Steve Sarkisian didn't pull Quinn Ewers last year when he was 19 of 49 at Oklahoma State. I don't think he's going to give Quinn Ewers the short leash. And as we just said, he got into a rhythm in the third quarter, put the game out of reach for all practical purposes. Malik Murphy comes in with 6 seconds left. The only reason I say that, we did not see Arch Manning, by the way. And so, we didn't get what we wanted, Eric. We thought maybe there'd be 2 series for Malik, 2 series for Arch. Texas couldn't put the game away fast enough for that to happen. So, it's Quinn Ewers. Look, here's the good news. The good news is Texas won the game. The bad news is they didn't look great doing it on offense. And the coaches are going to have the offense's full attention. The biggest question I had, Eric, was we had DJ Campbell start at right guard. DJ Campbell did not look confident at all in the first, really the whole time I saw him in the game. They actually, I thought, got better when he went out of the game in the third quarter. They brought in Neto Umazulu at left guard and moved Hayden Connor over to right guard. Cole Hudson, we found out after the game, Sarkisian said he was nicked up this week and was held out. So that offensive line, they've got to get their bleep together because they gave up a sack of Quinn Ewers deep in Texas territory when Kelvin Banks passed off DeBraylon Carroll. Sorry, Braylon Carroll. He passed him off to Hayden Connor, and Hayden Connor was off blocking nobody. He had kind of pushed over toward the center, and Braylon Carroll ran in unfettered and sacked Quinn for a 9-yard loss. That happens in Tuscaloosa. The fans are going to go crazy. Next week, everything gets magnified by 20 because of the environment and the fact that you're going to have 100,000 and yelling "Roll Tide" wearing crimson every time Alabama does something well and Texas does something bad. So that's I'm looking at DJ Campbell saying, can you get that much better in a week, or do we need to rethink this? Does Cole Hudson need to be in there? Do they need to have Neto at left guard and Hayden Connor at right guard? I don't know. But that offensive line has got some figuring out to do. Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, they got to figure it out fast.
Chip, sorry for jumping you there as far as finishing DeBraylon Carroll's name. The only reason I was able to is because, I wanted to point out something about him for Texas fans. I covered Conference USA for 5 years. DeBraylon Carroll's probably listed at 6 foot, maybe 290, 300. I'm telling you right now, he's 5'10". And the reason I point that out is because he had the sack, and he actually was the one who was in on the 4th down stop of Jonathan Brooks early in the game. That guy shouldn't be making that type of impact. He's a nice Conference USA player. He should not be making that kind of impact against this Texas offensive line, where the whole purpose of seemingly this, shift by adding DJ Campbell and others was to get bigger at the offensive line and be more imposing. So that's why I just want to make that point. But to what you said overall, as far as the continuity, we heard Jake Majors talk about it in the postgame, right? Taking some accountability, saying that the communication needed to be better, and that starts with him as the center. And that's great on Jake for taking the onus there, taking the brunt of everything that will happen. But let's just be honest, Chip, there were times in that first half where that right side of the offensive line looked out of sorts. And I don't want to put it all on DJ Campbell. I said this in my instant reaction to Tommy Yarish that, yes, DJ struggled, but I don't want to put it all on him. But the fact of the matter is, even some of the blitzes that were unaccounted for were right up his side. And I pointed out a sack to our own Jeff Howe, where I was like, I almost thought DJ Campbell was hurt for a second. Like, is he limping? And we looked and said, nah, he just got beat. So, yeah, some of that, as you said, Chip, great point. Can he get that much better in a week? We'll see. Maybe some of it are just teaching points, right? This is DJ's, first start, first, action, under the lights, prime time. Maybe some of that stuff is just teaching points, but it has to improve. It cannot look the way it did against Alabama, because as you said, on the road, that's not just, okay, let's pick ourselves back up and do it again. That is a huge momentum shift with, 80, 90,000 people are in Tuscaloosa chanting Roll Tide.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll wind it down on this, Eric. And we're going to be talking to John Talty of Bama 24/7. And we'll have that podcast for you on Monday morning. But defense, solid. That's a great first impression. You'll take it. They rotated a bunch of guys. Some of the young guys made plays. Chris Ross had a couple pressures. Tavondre Sweat was everywhere. Ethan Burke, I like him. He had a sack. They credit him with a half sack that should have gone to Byron Murphy. But I like the way he gets his arms up. When he knows he can't get to the quarterback, he times his jump, gets those long arms up to try to bat passes. He's gonna help. And then, we didn't see a whole lot from Jalen Catalon tonight, but they were rotating guys through. You had, Jaron Thompson didn't play in the first quarter because he broke team rules. So you had Michael Taft starting with Jalen Catalon. And then, Derek Williams got a lot of play at safety today. He didn't make a ton of plays, but they had confidence to put him out there. Malik Muhammad made some plays, right? Third series. He was out there, had a pass breakup, had a tackle on third down that forced a punt. Defense, solid. Going to have to take it up a notch, obviously, to stop the running quarterback. They didn't have to deal with that today. But special teams outside of Will Stone's second half kickoff going out of bounds and a 56-yard attempt after two horrible penalties on Texas that put them in 1st and 40. You'll take the special teams. The offense and the offensive line, to me, the biggest question, Eric, is what we were just talking about. Is DJ Campbell ready for prime time? Is he ready to go into Tuscaloosa and deal with all that Alabama's going to bring? And we know Sark knows Saban and his defense and everything, but DJ Campbell's got to block it. And I don't feel good about it right now. I think DJ Campbell might need a little more time, incubating, but that's why Sark and Kyle Flood get paid the big bucks. What's your biggest concern going into Alabama week?
Well, you talked about that, so I'm just going to take the one that I've harped on, at the beginning of this podcast, and I've harped on throughout the fall. I just would love to see, you talked about the fact that Texas opened the game with 4 straight passes, which did catch me off guard. Again, maybe it was just something we built up in our own mind, Chip, that they would come out and impose their will. Maybe that was our mistake, right? But if you're going to go into a place like Tuscaloosa, you're going to need some tough yards. There are going to be some times when it is late down, late drive, 3rd down, 4th down, and short yardage. I just want to see them come out and convert. Because I think once you do that, then you get the confidence that you can do it. On the flip side, if they come out early and again cannot convert, whether that's via pass or run, but I guess for the sake of this, via the run, it feels like it could possibly demoralize. It's a downer to the morale. So I just want to see them come out next week. That is the big concern in my mind. When those plays are there, when everyone in the stadium knows, you got to run it to pick up a yard or two. Can you get it done? Because Chip, in my mind, I feel like if you do it once, especially in a place like Bama, that can get the ball rolling for the entire season.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, Alabama's going to have Texas's attention in a way that Rice never will. So it's it could be a big step up, but I'm looking at that offensive line, Eric. I'm with you. You got to be able to make tough yards. You got to be able to run for those yards, because Alabama was able to run for those yards today against Middle Tennessee, and Alabama's going to have a tough day against this Texas defense. Everything's going to be earned. They're going to have a spy on Jalen Milroe. Who's that going to be with Mo Blackwell out? Is it Jahdae Barron? Is it Jalen Catalon? Who is it? But interesting day in college football, especially in the Big 12, where Colorado, who won one game last year, just went into Fort Worth and beat the team that finished as college football's national runner-up. And Baylor, who Texas will open with on the road in Big 12 play on September 23rd, lost at home 42-31 to Texas State. Houston was able to edge out Jeff Traylor and UTSA and Frank Harris 17-14. And right now, Texas Tech and Wyoming, 13:08 left in the third quarter. We're going to have to go watch the end of this one, Eric. Texas Tech leading 17-10. So, interesting day in college football.
Chip, Wyoming, they return some starters, which I guess, gives the Red Raiders a little more fits than, hopefully they can give the Horns. But like you said, interesting day in college football, and I guess we'll just have to tune in and happy football watching, right?
That's right. All right. For Eric Henry, I am Chip Brown. Thanks for listening to our recap of Texas's 37-10 win over Rice, with an eye on next week's game against Alabama. Make sure you tune in on Monday morning when we'll be talking to John Talty of Bama247.com to set you up for a big week. Texas at Alabama. All right. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith.